Ed Johnson was a young African-American man who was wrongfully accused of rape and sentenced to death in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1906. The U.S. Supreme Court granted a stay of his execution, but a mob stormed the jail and lynched him on the Walnut Street Bridge. The search results provide different levels of detail about the brutality of the attack on Ed Johnson. According to one source, as he was swinging in the air, a few men began to riddle Mr. Johnson's body with rounds and rounds of bullets. A stray bullet severed the rope, and Mr. Johnson's body fell onto the bridge. Another source states that Johnson was lynched on the Walnut Street Bridge in Chattanooga, and after a trial devoid of incriminating facts and with a clearly biased jury, he was sentenced to death for the rape of a white woman. When the U.S. Supreme Court granted a stay of his execution, a mob stormed the jail and lynched him on the bridge. A third source describes the Walnut Street Bridge as the place where, one night in 1906, a black man named Ed Johnson was brutally lynched. Wrongly convicted of raping a white woman, Johnson was hanged from one of the bright blue beams, then shot at by a mob of white men until a bullet severed the noose around his neck and Johnson fell to the ground, where the mob stepped in closer and kept shooting. The search results do not provide specific information about how the media covered the lynching of Ed Johnson at the time. However, some sources mention that the trial and lynching of Ed Johnson were well documented by newspapers and court documents. The black community in Chattanooga responded to Ed Johnson's lynching by staging widespread strikes the day after his murder and attending his funeral in large numbers the following day. Throughout Johnson's trial and after the lynching, black residents protested against the extrajudicial violence and espoused his innocence. Ed Johnson was a young African-American man who was lynched by a mob in Chattanooga, Tennessee on March 19, 1906, after being sentenced to death for the rape of Nevada Taylor. The lynching of Ed Johnson led to United States v. Shipp, the only criminal trial ever held by the United States Supreme Court, resulting in Sheriff Shipp and several other men being convicted of contempt of court. Johnson's trial was devoid of incriminating facts, and his lynching was a gross injustice that sparked widespread strikes among the black community in Chattanooga. Johnson's lynching is part of a larger history of lynching in the United States, with over 1,400 blacks being victims of lynching in the South in the 1890s. In 2021, a memorial to Ed Johnson was dedicated near the site of the lynching, and statues of Johnson and the attorneys who defended him were unveiled in Chattanooga. Rest in peace, Brother Ed Johnson.